Hare Krishna, Jai Sri Radhe. One's eyesight has a comparatively very short range. As the distance increases, objects seem to fade out, and beyond a certain limit, nothing is visible at all. And yet, far, far away, beyond the range of one's sight, things exist and events do happen. Yet, one does not take any cognizance of them. This happens because humans have four natural defects. Number one, Brahma means he must be illusioned. Number two, Pramada means he must commit mistakes. Number three, Vipralipsa means he has a natural cheating propensity. And Karnapatava means his senses are imperfect. So, being influenced by these four defects, humans are unable to think properly or see the things as they are. The same rule operates in history. Doings of remoter generations fade out of public memory and become unknown to every succeeding generation. But in such cases, the remedy lies not in basing one's thinking on what one sees only with one's physical eye, but in augmenting one's intellectual, rational, and logical capacity to look beyond with the help of more powerful aids such as traditional knowledge system, authentic ancient historical records, or even microscope or telescope in a gross material sense. Likewise, in history, to recall or reconstruct the events of the unknown generations in a modern materialistic point of view, one has to take an overall view of human existence and be able to draw inferences from analogies which are mentioned in the immortal divine Vedic scriptures. Let us ask ourselves the question that since humanity has lived on this globe for billions of years, is it possible that the industrial, scientific, and technological advancement that we have witnessed during last 150 years never occurred earlier? A period of 150 years in the illimitable stretch of time is like a mere fleeting spark or split second. Many periods of industrial, scientific, and technological advancement must have preceded our own. This conclusion, reached by analogical historical logic, is reinforced by actual references to wonder travel craft, mystery missiles, and miracle drugs mentioned in epics like the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and other ancient Vedic scriptures. The usual objection that archaeological finds have not justified any scientific advancement in the earlier ages could be overruled as unsound. Firstly, could it be said that we have dug the entire surface of the earth everywhere to the required depth to be sure that there are no more archaeological remains to be discovered? Secondly, is it not possible that twisted lumps of metal forming parts of ancient mechanical devices were actually found in diggings but were overlooked as being inconsequential lumps due to devilish political and religious compulsions. Thirdly, some ancient mechanical devices have, in fact, been found but have not been given due importance and publicity due to political reasons. For instance, a 2000-year ancient battery dug up from Baghdad region and capable of functioning even now has been on display in several European countries. Fourthly, the scientific advancement of the Ramayana and Mahabharata periods is so ancient a phenomenon that remnants of their mechanical devices could not be expected to survive for our study. Fifthly, the extreme heat under the Earth's surface, pressure of the rocks, and the freezing temperature in icy regions may have made the survival of the ancient mechanical devices up to our own times impossible. Sixthly, geologists have come across the curious phenomenon of older rocks sitting on the shoulders of the younger rocks. That is to say, when one digs the earth, one comes across first rocks which geologists say are older in age than the rocks below them. How does this happen? Do the bowels of the earth undergo periodic convulsions, turmoils, and upsets which draw in the upper layer deep down and throw off inner layers? If such giant convulsions and stirrings are constantly taking place inside the earth, all the archaeological remains of ancient ages would naturally be drawn in and pulverized so as to become indistinguishable. If pot shreds are the only relics which survive for any length of time, that is because they are more recent. Such are the factors which militate against a strict archaeological view. Therefore, in such cases, analogical historical logic and ancient records, however mystical or magical they might occur to us, must be made use of. In that short-sighted historical tradition, which I have mentioned earlier in the beginning of this episode, European writers have tended to boost European scientists as pioneers in human history. Since the entire educational setup in the modern world is dominated by Western concepts that claim about European scientists having been the first of their kind has generally remained unchallenged. So, the claim of the Europeans that their scientists are the champions of all kinds of modern discoveries and inventions must not, however, be accepted. Bhaskar, the ancient Bharatiya mathematician, discovered differential calculus long before the Europeans. Aryabhat of the 1st century BC enunciated the rules for the extraction of square and cube roots, arithmetical progressing summation of series, and the value of pi. The famous indeterminate equation of the second degree that the ancient Vedic mathematician Brahmagupta was familiar with is wrongly claimed to be the discovery of Swiss mathematician Euler. In astronomy, Vedic scientists talked of the dimensions of galactic universes and the age of the solar system. Thousands of years before Einstein, Sage Vyasadeva had spoken of Digdesha Kala Veda, meaning annihilation of the difference between time and space. So, Europeans' claims are therefore short sighted. In history, too, one tends to regard events and persons nearer in point of time as bigger than those of remoter date. The reality may, however, be the reverse. Therefore, even as a hypothesis, let us assume that when divinity created this world billions of years ago, it equipped the first generation of human beings with godly expertise in all fields of human knowledge. Consequently, it could be that human physical, mental, and technological standards have progressively deteriorated from Kruta Yuga, means Satya Yuga, to Treta Yuga and Dwapara Yuga. Our own Kali Yuga, means the present age of quarrel and hypocrisy, appear to be at the lowest rung, wherein standards of physical endurance, mental comprehension, character, behavior, reliability and loyalty, etc., seem to be at a very low ebb or almost vanishing. For solid example, we have Epstein files. Do we really are living in a human society? I don't think so. The time is coming very soon when a father will eat the flesh of his son or daughter without any hesitation. We must try to understand that all human knowledge has devolved from the divine Almighty and not evolved from the caveman stage, is borne out by ancient Sanskrit texts. Whichever the branch of knowledge, from music to medicine, every master speaks of its divine origin. Another clue is that no matter how far back we reach in time, every author speaks of a remoter master. None claims to be a pioneer of self-taught expert. It has become habitual these days to look upon the Greeks as the pioneers of civilization. Scientific advancement existed much before we read of Greeks. Godfrey Higgins observes, quote, "In science, the Greeks were pygmies. What could they have known of science if their Platos and Pythagorases had not travelled into the East? In science and real learning, they were inferior to the Orientals and were the greatest liars upon the earth. They willfully misstated everything, or they foolishly confounded everything." Unquote. Higgins adds, quote, "The mariner's compass was known to the ancients, and it was never lost entirely, and always continued to be known to the Chinese and the Eastern nations, whence it was brought to Europe from China by Marco Polo and from the Indian seas about the same time by Vasco da Gama. That this knowledge should have been possessed by the ancients will not surprise anyone who has been the learned work of Monsieur Dutens. Quote, "Sure less the converts, des anciens, attributes ox, modernness." Unquote. These are Latin words, so please pardon my pronunciation. Monsieur Dutens continues, quote, "Many persons have thought that the Druids and the ancients generally had the use of telescopes. According to Strabo, a large mirror was elevated on the summit of the temple of the sun at Heliopolis to reflect into the temple the full splendor of its meridian beam, whilst another of still larger dimensions was placed on the pharaohs at Alexandria in such a manner as to reflect ships approaching Egypt at a great distance and imperceptible to the eye. Diodorus Siculus says that, quote, in an island west of the Kaltak, the Druids brought the sun and moon near them. The ancients knew that the Milky Way consisted of small stars. The expression in one of the triads of the moon appearing near the earth is curious. Sir William Drummond, the author of Origins, supposes that the ravages and destruction caused by the iconoclast of Persia had caused the loss of science in Chaldee and Egypt, unquote. So these references indicate the use of solar energy in ancient times, when in our own times we are just beginning to make some preliminary experiments in its use. Again, Duten says in page number 113 to 115 that, quote, Druids were acquainted with the art of making gunpowder or artificial thunder and lightning. The storm of thunder and lightning, which in 3 attempts made to rob their temple, kindled in the face of the invaders as they approached it, and drove back with loss and terror both Xerxes and Brennos. Cannot be imagined any other than this. Lucan's satirical description of druidical group near Marseilles, that the group is often shaken and strangely moved, and that dreadful sounds are heard from its caverns, and that it is sometimes in a blaze without being consumed, points to the use of gunpowder. In the poem of Dargo, son of the Druid of Bel, phenomena of a somewhat similar nature are mentioned. Mr. Maurice states that the Hindus had the knowledge of the gunpowder even from the most remotest antiquity. In this, he is supported by Mr. Crawford, Volume 2, page number 149, unquote. The Vedas themselves contain the keys to the most complicated mathematical systems and calculations. Those can be deciphered by accomplished mathematicians with the required meditative concentration. The late Shankaracharya of Jagannath Puri in Odisha had demonstrated it in his treatise called Vedic Mathematics, that the Vedas should contain the keys to all mathematical configurations appears plausible because the Vedas are technological compendiums of the cosmos in which we live. Since the Vedas were delivered by the divinity along with the inauguration of human life, high mathematics was known to the ancient Vedic spiritual masters or sages. This is apparent from the figure called log of 10 to the power 19, means 19 zeros on 10, which has been the part of human knowledge from the beginning of the universe and is not an invention of a few thousand years ago, as is generally assumed. And secondly, such an astronomical figure connoted the highest mathematical competence and the most complicated technological requirements. In Vedic recitations, the number of verses is 10,580, syllables 1,53,820, and letters 4,32,000. Such a meticulous count kept from the beginning of time also indicates that the zero is not a latter-day man-made invention. It may also be noted that as per Vedic tradition, the duration of every life cycle is 4,320 million human years. Here we should remember that the duration of time is different in different planetary systems. That figure is an exact multiple of the number of letters which constitute the Vedas. Is that a mere coincidence or is there some subtle relation between the two? The Vedic Sulva Sutras could contain the keys to the highest geometrical calculations. Unfortunately, they are being currently attributed only a primitive significance, namely that they contain the dimensions and methods of sketching a pit and altar for a sacrificial fire. If some geometrical genius meditates on the Sulva Sutras, he may be able to deduce the highest geometrical truths from them. The ancient spiritual masters are also known to have practiced alchemy and used mercury vapor for powering aircraft. It has been explained earlier that terms like atom and molecule are Sanskrit. They indicate that nuclear physics was known in the ancient eras. There are several other similar indications. Consider the words mantra, tantra, jantra. Mantra is the formula, tantra is technology, and jantra is mechanism. But ever since that highly developed science and technology was lost, those three words mantra, tantra, jantra have acquired only a mystic esoteric meaning. This is what natural for when the kernel is lost. The empty cell appears to be meaningless, or at best, it will be put to some trivial use, as a mere receptacle, for instance. This is what has happened to ancient Hindu Vedic technology. The technique having been lost, the surviving terminology is being attributed only a mythological, ritualistic, esoteric, mystic, religious, or spiritual significance. Thus, for instance, Vedic tradition retains a compendium of ancient tantric designs made up of squares, rectangles, triangles, and circles, all intricately woven into one another to form different, complicated, symmetrical patterns. They could very well be ancient circuit channels for different technological devices. In our own time, we have such energy circuits and channels in our radio, television sets, atomic reactors, and other mechanisms. All these circuits will appear to be meaningless diagrams, devoid of all practical use if their technology is lost of some reason. For instance, if our petrol sources suddenly dry up, our automobile and aircraft technology will all come to a dead halt. The hulks of our automobiles, trucks, tanks, armored cars, and aircraft will be useless. Yet, their safes and energy circuits and one-time service and energy potential lingering in public memory will arouse a sense of awe and respect. But all that will appear meaningless or an empty baseless boast to other matter-of-fact people. A similar thing may be sensed about the terminological relics of Vedic technology that survive today. Take the instance of the Hindus' traditional reverence for the 12 legendary centers of Shiva worship known as Jyotirlingas. The name of the 12 are Somnath, Mallikarjun, Mahakaleshwar, Omkareshwar, Vaidyanath, Naganath, Kedareshwar, Triambakeshwar, Rameshwar, Bhimashankar, Vishwanath, and Grishneshwar. Every Orthodox devout Hindu harbors a feeling of great respectful awe towards those Shiva shrines. Every pious Hindu considers himself lucky if he can pray at each one of those ancient Shiva temples at least once in a lifetime. A visit to all the 12 gives every devout Hindu a sense of spiritual fulfillment. While it has been universally assumed hitherto that those 12 Shiva emblems are objects mere esoteric spiritual homage, there are overwhelming indications that the Shiva emblems symbolizes atomic reactors of an immemorial past. There are innumerable irresistible points of identity between the two. Just consider the name Shivaling itself. The term Shiva means blissful, while the syllable Ling signifies a sign or an emblem. Also consider the shape of a Shivaling is identical with that of a modern atomic reactor, as that at Trombe in Bharat. An aerial photograph of the atomic reactor unit give it the look of a Shivaling. If modern physicists have any reliable methods and instruments to verify the existence of nuclear energy production centers of 5,000 to a million years ago, they would do well to have the 12 legendary Jyotirlinga sites tested. I have read that a person called R.N. Shukla of Pune has done it. On a closer analysis of the Sanskrit term Jyotirling, it would be found to connote literally nothing but an atomic reactor. In Sanskrit, the word Jyoti connotes the shimmering light of cosmic masses such as stars. The suffix ling implies productivity, alias a productive energy generator. Therefore, the term Jyotirling connotes a mechanism generating cosmic energy. Lord Shiva, whom the Jyotirling symbolizes, is also known as Triambakes, meaning the Lord with three eyes. The Greek's term Bacchus is the truncated last syllable of the name Triambakes of Lord Shiva. The third eye, usually closed and invisible, is supposed to be hidden inside the middle of Shiva's forehead. The Greek legends which talk of giants called Cyclopes having a wheel-like eye in the middle of the forehead are based on the Hindu Shiva concept. It is also believed that the interior of the mid-forehead shelters the key molecule, what we call the Atma or soul, which controls, governs and determines a person's life and physique. When Lord Shiva is moved to earth, his third eye opens to let out a jet of luster which dazzles and destroys the universe. That destructive luster is what we call nuclear energy. Please watch the second part of this episode. Hare Krishna, Har Har Mahadev.